Science may have found a cure for most evils, but it has found no remedies for the worst of them all, the apathy of human beings. Now that is a quote by Helen Keller, and I think she got it right when it comes to Porton Down. Porton Down is a scientific establishment, research facility that studied the effects of nerve gas on the human body. Now, even though the experiments are over, their results still impact us today. There have been a lot of articles published on the research that was done at Porton Down, and chemical warfare is still something that happens today, so I think it's very important to understand. Michael Mosley is a BBC News journalist that actually went to Porton Down to publish a documentary on the history and origin of Porton Down. And what he found was that Porton Down was established about 100 years ago in response to German gas attacks in World War I. The nerve gas that was used was developed as a weapon by the Nazis before and during World War II. And as the Nazi state was declining in the end of World War II, the British came in and found stocks of gas and then brought them back to Porton Down to be tested. And those tests and research progressed to the Cold War, and as the Cold War progressed, that gave the British moral justification to begin their research and further it by using human experimentation. Now, during the Cold War, these scientists produced two different gases. One is CS gas, commonly known as tear gas, and the second is venomous gas, or venomous X gas, which is very similar to sarin, which is also a gas that the Nazis had developed. So from this time on to 1989, Porton Down had exposed about 3,400 British servicemen to this gas during these tests. Now, we talked about the history and origin of Porton Down. Now I would like to talk about the experiments that were conducted at Porton Down. Now, Porton Down has collected a lot of data on the effects of nerve gas on the human body. Nerve gas has really major effects on the human body physically, and those physical effects include hearing loss, vomiting, headaches, and eye pain. And one of the other effects of nerve gas is that it causes the muscles in the body to be in a constant state of constriction and doesn't allow those muscles to relax. Now, the second aspect that is affected by nerve gas is the psychological side. Now, these Porton Down scientists decided to test the intelligence of some aircraftsmen by exposing them to this gas and then telling them to go about their military duties. And what they found was that their intelligence didn't decline, but their eye coordination did. Even though intelligence is not affected, what the scientists did discover is that a lot of these servicemen reported that they felt depressed, unhappy, and had decreased mental alertness after exposure. So we've talked about the history and origin, and we've talked about the human experiments that were conducted. Now I want to finalize this by talking about the two servicemen that were very highly affected from these experiments. The first one I want to talk about is a serviceman named Kelly. He became very ill because of these experiments and then later fell into a coma. And then sometime after that he did recover, but he was still very highly affected. Now, because of this incident, it's a very clear indication that the experiments posed a very significant risk and that they needed to be shut down immediately, but they weren't. Another serviceman, he was an aircraftsman by the name of Ronald Madison. He was also part of an experiment that involved putting sarin gas on the forearm. And after exposure, he started experiencing hearing loss, very irregular respiration, and he had very increased sweating. And then minutes after exposure, he died. So in conclusion, because of the death of Ronald Madison, human experiments were highly scrutinized after that, and that slowly led to the end of human experiments at Porton Down. So the information that we covered was the dark past that Porton Down had, and the experiments that they conducted, and from the results of those experiments, one serviceman died. So Porton Down has a very dark past, but its research still impacts us positively today. So let that motivate you to become more aware of the chemical warfare that happens around us today, because the United States is very highly involved in some countries that use chemical warfare.